Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm here on the Scoop Studio at Productronica 2019. I'm joined by Jürgen Thurner from Excellence.
From Experts for Excellence.
Experts for Excellence, yes. Always great to talk to you because you've really got your finger on the pulse on what's happening. You're involved in lots of projects in terms of digital transformation, not just in manufacturing, but of the supply chain as well. We've been talking to guests about kind of the building blocks and the stages we've been going through with Industry 4.0, you know, the steep hype, the confusion. I feel now we're in a kind of a realization and action phase. I certainly hope we are. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I thought about that the other day when I thought, well, I'm not feeling there is a lot of things going on. There is no movement in the whole digitalization in manufacturing industries, but also on the supply chain side. But then I came to the point after a little thinking of this is like when you are within a development, you don't see the development, okay? Because the incremental steps are so small. This is like a family, you don't see your kids growing. But if you and if we would go to a remote island in the South Pacific for 2 years, disconnected from the world, and then we would come back, then we would see the difference. And this is, I think, what happens at the moment with the digitalization in manufacturing industries. It's small steps, and since we are in the subject, we don't see these increments, but it's here. It's here. They're real.
And I think some of it is, for me, it's building blocks. So these digital building blocks that weren't there when we first started talking about this 5 years ago. Right. So we seem to have finally nailed the issue of connectivity. Hopefully we can stop talking about standards and protocols soon and get on with, building intelligence on top of it. AI has moved on leaps and bounds, so that's now available to companies that wouldn't have dreamt of being able to use machine learning, so there are opportunities there. So there really is the opportunity to leverage that digitization, use some intelligence, and actually create better business solutions from it.
What I see is that there is a huge community of new young companies, startup companies, software guys. They are bringing the access and the entrance to KI and making KI AI, artificial intelligence, available for established companies. And established companies start using these things at the moment. That's what I see.
Yeah, and it's part of a trend, but they've got to figure out how to get value out of it for the customers. Tell me a bit about the kind of projects you're involved at the moment. What's exciting you that you're allowed to talk about?
Okay, so the three main things I'm in is still it's digitalization in all aspects, not only manufacturing or supply chain, but all our aspects of life, because that's changing a lot of things, especially for the generation of 65 plus. I mean, they will have a challenge with things changing, but also still back to business, manufacturing and supply chain things. I'm still in the education business, as you know. What I've found out is that companies tend to lose expertise and to lose knowledge, so I want to commercialize a little bit on that one. What I take from university studies, from my lecturing at university, commercialize this a little bit and make the contents available to companies. That's my plans for the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I've talked to several people about, there are a couple of dynamics there. One is this thing we call the silver tsunami, which is all us grey-haired guys disappearing out of the industry and the knowledge we take with us. And some of that is tribal, and some of it is kind of art over science, and we need to weed out what's important. And then the other element is getting these young kids in, and you're seeing that on the front line. When you're lecturing to those students, do they want to get involved in manufacturing?
Well, interestingly, I wouldn't say in manufacturing, but in operations management, in the further sense, in the bigger sense. Interestingly, I had 2-3 students from the last 2-3 semesters who I now find in operational positions where they had no idea about operations before, and maybe hopefully through my lecturing I could raise their appetite for the subject, and now they find themselves in supply chain or operations roles. And this feels good for me.
Yeah, I mean it's small victories, but for me they're huge, and it's encouraging when we see some Silicon Valley startups with young people getting involved in this sector, but it's still quite small numbers, so we really need to pull that through. How do you go about converting the tribal knowledge and the experience that people like ourselves have, and being able to get that into a format that can be used for future people, and maybe can inform some of this AI? Have you got a way of kind of absorbing all our knowledge and putting it on the database somewhere?
No, not putting it on a database other than my own personal one, because I mean that's the core of my business. I mean, I'm collecting things and I'm building up my own databases, and I'm also developing new ways how to teach subjects, or how to I don't like the word to teach subjects, to transfer knowledge, because that's what it's all about. It's all about transferring knowledge. I do this more and more with a technique that's called storytelling, and that's quite funny because I take the subject and build a story around the subject, and then I tell the story, and the effect is people tend to forget about the subject, but they keep the story. And when you link these two things together, then they keep the subject as well. That's the way how I do it, and it works very well.
Yeah.
And I'm getting good feedback on that one. Yeah.
And storytelling is what I do, and I enjoy that, and I think it's a really important way of imparting knowledge, because you want people to enjoy the content. Last thing I wanted to just briefly touch on with you is, part of this digital transformation is happening on a number of levels. We're digitally transforming manufacturing in terms of connecting machines, all those kind of things. We're digitally transforming some business practices within there. So supply chain comes in. We're trying to accelerate the purchasing. Companies like CalcuQuote are partnered with various software providers to speed up that bidding, and you know how painful that used to be. And then the last area is the digitization of actual business models. So, equipment as a service, software as a service, manufacturing as a service. When you're talking to your students, which of them is the most exciting? Do they want to get involved in the machines? Do they want to get involved in the business?
No, they rather want to get involved in the business, which I think is a good thing, because I mean my students are international because it's an international business school, but their interest is more in the business aspect. Whereas Germany as a country, we are a nation of engineers, and we need to get a little bit more of the other side, of the business side as well. We had these discussions about interfaces and standards the last couple of years. It has improved a little bit. So even here in Germany, the people are thinking more about, okay, how can I monetize on the digitalization? And servitization, strange word, it's a new word, it's kind of a fashion word. I don't like it very much, but it is what it is. It is turning something that you have bought 10 years ago to use it. Now you buy the service. And there is a lot of things going on in terms of the servitization. More and more things are being bought as a service, which is good for the one who buys the service, because he can switch it on and off. Which is a challenge for the one offering the service, because if you offer a machine as a service, the machine still stays yours. So your working capital requirements are really high, and you need to finance these. That's their challenge.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it almost rolls us back to the 1990s, where the EMS industry was growing. They were acquiring OEM factories. It all becomes about utilization, doesn't it? Poor utilization is fine for the OEM, but it's really bad for the EMS. And the same would be true for people providing equipment as a service or anything else. Jürgen, it's always a joy to chat. We could talk all day, but we should not. And enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.